This is the Tapped In Podcast, the podcast for beverage distributors that want to empower their sales team to drive business results. Listen up and welcome back to another episode of Tapped In Sales. I'm your host, Bud, here with co-host Mikey. Mikey is in a brand new studio running around, setting it up today. Mikey, what's going on over there?
We had to get the lighting right, man. It was the software that we record on is a little bit different than Zoom or any other camera. So last night I had it all perfect lighting wise and everything was great. And then this morning when we got on, it wasn't great. So had to make some slight adjustments, but yeah, in the new studio.
So Mikey, we'll keep going here. Let's do this first. We have some breaking news. We'll see how much trouble we get in for sharing, the Wall Street Journal here. But Dr. Pepper Keurig, hot off the presses here, buying Ghost Energy for over $1 billion.
Crazy. But you can't say we didn't see it coming.
No, that's another clip. But let's get through the details here. There's $990 million in exchange for 60% ownership. And then the other 48% or the other 40% will be bought in 2028. So, which is incredible.
Yeah. I mean, Ghost has been on fire too. So in the energy drink world and Keurig Dr. Pepper not really having a horse, it was a good move on their part.
For sure. And Ghost has been on fire with no real support either.
Yeah. It was just, we were there for the beginning of it. And when it first launched, we were like, how are we supposed to do this without any sliding fees or anything like that? We're going in the wild, wild west and we made it work and it's continuing to work across the country.
It is. But it's not like we didn't see this coming.
For any young, beverage entrepreneurs out there, if you want to be a billionaire, develop a good brand in the non-alcoholic space, partner with beer distributors, put 1x GP in your contract, talk us all into doing it, and then terminate all of us at one time and sell to Coke, Pepsi, or Monster.
Right.
We mint billionaires as a network really, really well.
Yes, that is a great point. Wow, Bud, that is you do. Build it on the backs of wholesalers. Let them build the brand. Yep. Give them no value back. 1x.
1x. Right. And move on to the next one.
And move on.
It's insane. Yeah. Foreshadowing, same play, new people. Who knows, man? Just wild, right?
That is wild. Yeah. Good call on that, man. Wait for the future, right?
It's going to happen at some point, right? It's just going to happen.
Yeah, you're right. As far as calling out, we're distributors, we're brand builders. We really build the brand.
And
I think in that clip you said distributors are really good at making billionaires.
Great at minting billionaires. Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Oh, man.
What we wanted to go into today was Delta 9 and THC-infused drinks on our end, and what we see from the marketplace. We're gonna kind of address this in a couple different sections. The main section is about we want you to be at the table instead of on the menu. More of a legislative discussion for beer distributors to consider. And then the next part is if you do choose to go forward and you do choose to play in this space, what that might look like, right? So let's go through Delta 9, THC drinks, and the beverage industry. So in the beer distribution industry, we want to be at the table rather than on the menu. And what's that look like? At the end of the day, we want to have long-standing relationships in the industry with people that are sitting around the table and making these legislative decisions. So we need to be the adults in the room, right, Mikey? We've been selling controlled substances for the better part of 90 years now, and we are the adults in the room. We've got long-standing legislative relationships. We know the political atmosphere really, really well. We have trade practices. There's a bunch of things that we know about being in the industry, about tackling these topics that make sense for us to play in it in a really big way and to be smart about it as well.
Absolutely. And we also see the effects when products come into the category that don't have the right regulation. right? We've lived through it, and we've experienced from it. We've learned from it, and beer distributors are best suited to help guide this new segment, I guess you would call it, into the market.
Exactly. Yep. So, all these things that we care about. And the other piece about like being at the table, whether you want to sell this stuff or not, if you should be getting involved in the legislative discussion, because your legislators want to hear from you. You're the only people that they know that have experience selling these controlled substances into the market. So they want to hear from you, and they're hearing from hemp beverage folks or Delta 9 folks or the THC or big cannabis, if that's even an industry now, is big weed or big cannabis. Like, they have their own agenda, but they want to hear from you. Like, we're in the local community supporting this. And we have experience in the space. I've got a couple slides in here from a guy named Ian Dominguez at Delta Ventures, and they are specializing in their private equity kind of organization. We should have him on the podcast and talk a little bit more about his org and what he's seeing in the industry. But he's done some nice research, and he was kind enough to share it with us. And like, this is one of those positions of like, we're 100% aligned with, we're selling controlled substances. We're in the supermarket channel. We're managing this with, all the different paces and places where we're selling products. So it makes a ton of sense for us to be in this space for sure, right? Because non-alcoholic isn't doing this. Wine and spirits are doing it a little bit. But at the end of the day, like, we're the ones that are in the mix doing this in a big way. And across
absolutely.
all the different categories of stores, like, we're the group that has the biggest store, like, coverage across everybody, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Trying to think. I feel like I skipped a couple slides.
Oh,
Nope, I didn't.
okay.
Nope, I didn't.
I have while we're on a break here too, I at some point, I don't know when you want to tie it in, but I was going to tie in some examples of unregulated products or segments coming into the category, like the Four Loko case would be a good one. And then like the Alcopops controversy, when like Mike's and like all those first hit the market, and they were considered targeted towards children. FDA stepped in with some different taxing, and like, so we can work that in.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that right here. So, back to this slide, Mikey, where we've got 12,000 dispensaries and 250,000 like convenience, grocery, and liquor stores. Like, there's a huge amount of footprint for stores where we're doing business in as a category or a channel supporter in the beverage alcohol DTC space. We're doing a really good job supporting this category already. These products could win in this category in a big way. And what else are you thinking about from other categories or other products coming into this market?
Well, yeah, I mean, when I think about THC or Delta 9 coming in a drink, right, with an unregulated type of market, my head goes right back to the 2000s, Four Loko. We all lived through that experience. Most of us listening lived through that experience. And that was kind of wild, when a whole new segment kind of emerged, right? Caffeine plus alcohol, high alcohol at that. There were some other players already in the market, but when Four Loko came and like, hold my beer and watch this at 12% alcohol and caffeine, we watched it emerge on the news every day. And, they were calling them zombie drunks or something like that. So
zombie drunks.
Yeah, you're getting absolutely just drunk and wasted, but the caffeine is altering your brain and making you not feel the effects as much. So people were, basically overdosing and giving themselves alcohol poisoning without knowing it, because they were drinking so much. FDA had to step in, right? And they put their foot down. So at that point, it was absolutely too late. Same thing, I think way back in the 90s, Alcopops. Remember the term Alcopops? That was
Yes.
when Mike's and Smirnoff, first hit the market, hit the streets. And the accusation was that they were targeted towards children because they taste like pop, they taste like candy or whatever soft drink, and targeted towards children. And some states actually really put their foot down and started taxing them like spirits, and the FDA stepped in, and it got messy. So without the proper regulation into the channel, into the segment first, it could get really messy. And the last thing we want is that regulation to be taken out of our hands and not be at the table. And a prime example with that would be, you know, if you think Delta 9 or any THC infused beverage on a shelf with, you know, we've talked about this before, where we think the sweet spot is 5 milligrams and under, you know, 2s, 3s, 5s. But right now you can go out and you can see 50s and 100s and crazy things. Now imagine somebody walking in that wants to experiment with some Delta 9. They've heard good things. Maybe they're older. They're not very knowledgeable on the product, and they grab one. They grab a 20 or a 50, or, you know, maybe even 100 that's next to a 2 or 3, and they don't really know what they're getting into, and they try it. You know, that's the kind of stuff that we really don't want to see happen. At least some regulatory frames around it, to where if it isn't 5 and under, maybe the higher dosage stuff is treated a little bit different. Maybe that stays in a dispensary, you know, or it's treated absolutely different than the low dose stuff.
Yep. That makes sense to me. In that 5 to 10 kind of and there's this weird thing where the industry, the beverage alcohol wholesalers, a few of them are kind of getting hung up on how much is a dose and how many doses are in a can. You know, 5 to 10 or 3 to 5 in a vessel, like milligrams, versus do we want to do something that is more like almost like akin to a spirit, where the alcohol content is higher or the THC content is higher, and there's more doses per bottle as well. But there's also that expectation that you wouldn't sit down and drink something like that in one sitting as well.
Well, then you probably shouldn't make it a pop top at that point, right? Maybe that's for a screw top, like a liquor bottle or something like that.
Exactly. Like, I think the vessel needs to be different the same way that it is in beverage alcohol, which that's kind of organically happened in beverage alcohol. But you've got some of these Delta 9 people that are putting 100 milligrams in something that looks like it should be drank in one setting, right?
Yeah.
So that is a challenge. And then, you know, a part of being on the menu, like if you're not at the table, the things that I, you know, talk about where you're on the menu, then it's like, when do you live in a world where you have a burgeoning cannabis business or THC drinks business or Delta 9 business that is thriving, growing, has, you know, creativity in the category. There are no trade practice rules. There's slotting fees. There's, you know, direct ship to consumer. There's direct ship to store. And the legislators look and be like, hey, maybe these alcohol laws are outdated and they're really old and they don't really work, or they don't really grow the market, and that they're actually hindering, and that we have this, you know, controlled substance that's getting a market that's perfect and actually is growing. Maybe we should completely reorganize the way that we're going to market with beverage alcohol too. So at the end of the day, for me, if you want to be in the game or whether you don't want to be in the game, if you're a beer distributor, you should be talking to your legislators about this. If you are not at the table, you will be on the menu, and you don't want to be on the menu. And regardless of the outcome, you just don't want to be on the menu. Now,
yeah,
if you do want to get in the game, the second part of this is really about what reasons to believe and how do you want to believe. And a couple of adoption here is where, like, adult use, this is a projection, and even just real data of it growing here from 2013 to 2014. And then there's a little bit of straight line thinking or design in here. I can get behind some of that as like it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Yes, like it should, and it probably will. How much bigger and bigger are TBD. So, but other things to believe here is like, this is from Google Trends. This is the search term interest over time, where you can see that organic interest from September to September. That is, you know, organically growing as well. And to me, search term is really powerful, because when you see people looking for it, that means that it's in the American psyche or in the Google psyche somewhere, and people are hunting down either or learning about it or they're shopping for it. And then here, you know, we can see some of the blues and lighter blues where people are most interested, obviously up in Minnesota, where it is probably the most sophisticated market that people are most interested in. And then you can see the rest of the state is kind of growing slightly, little by little by little. And in the market, like en route to market, we own the channels as beer distributors. We own the channels that where these products are probably going to do the best, right? C-store, liquor store, on premise, maybe chains. But that C-store and that liquor store business, Mikey, when we're on the trade and we've been working with clients that are selling this, like, what are you noticing?
It's popping up everywhere. Yeah. And especially C stores, it's beer space. It's singles. Typically the vessel is, is a single, maybe some 4-packs here and there, but yeah, it's in the beer space. It's a shelf or two above the beer singles. Like in your slide right here, there's little either, steak, shippers or little stackers that are popping up everywhere or even on the counter. But yeah, very colorful, very come grab me, right? It sticks out. The packaging is great.
Exactly. And the innovation in the category has come a long way too, from where it was just smokable flower to now we're talking about edibles, seltzer, soda pop, teas, NA beer, maybe an overlap in the malt category with NA beers at some point.
We have some suppliers that are lined up to do that.
Exactly. So there are suppliers that are lined up to do that. You've got, like we said, like I said earlier, you've got soda people. We got the Jones Soda is doing Mary Joan,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yep.
So, what will be next? Will the big name brands get into it? I think the big name brands probably have to get into it at some point, right?
Yeah, you would think. I mean, if once we get some regulation, right, federally, and it's not as scary as it looks right now, we'll definitely see some big names pop in, on the soda side and on the beer side, I think. And it's, when I mean beer side, I mean, I'm thinking big names are not going to come out with like a Budweiser hemp ale, but, I think Tilray or anything else that's lined up to emerge a non-alcoholic beer that is infused with cannabis.
Exactly. And another reason to believe is like, why are people moving in this direction? Well, they've got profitability from a wholesaler perspective that is making this available for purchase. And we've got some wholesalers that we've been doing business with where this is filling the gap of profit loss on Bud Light drama or other premium light beverage, premium light beer market share loss as a whole over time. And it's just so profitable per case that it's just tough to give up, right?
Absolutely. That's the other thing too when we think about regulation. What if we do have some of these brands in our house? Because this episode, whether you're for it or against it, the great takeaway is you have to be at the table, not on the menu, right? So even if you're for it or against it, but what if you do have some of these brands in your warehouse and it is making up some of that loss that you're seeing from maybe your major suppliers or just beer trends overall? And then without the proper regulations, the FDA steps in and squashes the whole thing and it all goes back to dispensaries.
Exactly.
Right now we've lost all that incremental income as well.
Yep, exactly. We do want to have that opportunity to bring it in here. I even have a viewpoint where if we don't have a beverage category position of like, hey, we don't want to have these high potencies things sold in C stores and gas stations. They should be sold in dispensaries, just like what the network is, where you've got, grocery stores and C stores, and then you have liquor stores. Those liquor stores start to look a lot like those dispensaries for the beverage category. Let's build a regulatory framework where we're selling the low dose, light dose items in low units to the, on and off premise that are general up and down the street business, and move those high dose things to dispensaries. And that we as DTC beer distributors are still, or DSD beer distributors are still moving that product into those stores. And you've noticed this a ton in the trade too, Mikey, of like newer types of consumers are coming into the category too. So you've got things like parents and grandparents, that there's a stigma around dispensaries, and that this beverage drinks category, this THC drinks category, really kind of dissuades or moves around some of that stigma side.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a whole new consumer base. It's somebody that's not really playing in the bev elk area, and they're definitely not going to dispensaries, but they're trying and enjoying some of these low dose infused THC products, typically Delta 9, just because they're the most widespread, right? And when you can walk into your local convenience store or your local packaged liquor store and pick up these products, that goes a long way, because most of these consumers will not walk into the dispensary, right? There's the stigma of, I don't want my car seen outside. I don't want to be seen walking inside. It's scary. They take your ID. What does that mean? That, you know, are you in the database? So there's a lot of things that go in that, but when you can literally pick one up at your local store right around the corner and go home with it, you know, that just opens up so many new consumers, and especially sampling. And, you know, what better way for sampling?
It does. It does. And like the industry is struggling. I don't see the industry, the beverage alcohol side, changing overnight. We're going through our sugar tax moment as an industry. You know, the same thing that carbonated soft drinks went through. And, you know, late 90s, like it was, you know, Coke and Pepsi and maybe some diet products in the late 90s, early 2000s. But now that's carbonated soft drinks business is growing, and they have completely evolved the category. There's a whole new, you know, when we were, you know, in our early 20s, you know, teenage years, it was like Pellegrino was the only seltzer water that you could have. And now they've got a whole wall dedicated to it with all different players in it. And that's one of the reasons why that category has started to get back to growth, because they've created the innovation. And I think beverage alcohol is going to go through that evolution too, but it's going to take time for that to happen, and it's going to organically happen over many, many years instead of short. Beer distributors need some action now, and this is where the action comes from, and an opportunity for it. And, you know, if you don't have Modelo in your market or in your wholesaler, you're probably struggling one way, shape, or form. Because now, you know, Bud Light drama, Bud Light people, AB people haven't gotten back as much as they thought they would. Molson Coors folks haven't held on to as much as they thought they would. And Modelo is really kind of continuing to organically grow across the network of wholesalers that we use. So, you know, whether you're an AB or a Molson Coors wholesaler, if you don't have Modelo, this is something that you probably should be looking at, bottom line, for your business as well. And these products are like targeting right at what we're looking at doing too, like better for you. They're using that. There's not a lot of data to support this, but they're still targeting that message to the consumer. So they're coming for that drinker already. And we've got to figure out, this is another reason why to be at the table, not on the menu, and talking to legislators around, like, is it really better for you? Do we have the research to support it? And starting to send that message up to the legislators as well.
Yeah, with that slide right there, it's pretty powerful. I mean, light on calories, high on life, right? 0% hangover, 100% social. If that doesn't have a target on beer's back, I don't know what does. And to be in the same door with those products as well. And outside of regulatory issues, you know, if we do control the products, and we also control the space as well, and we watch where that space is being taken from and where it goes.
Yep. And I want us to kind of have a call to action around that. To me, this is about owning your route to market and not being so wed to only selling one type of category of product. You know, and every single time that we've bought into this kind of thinking, it's played out well for us. The first thing was that we should sell more than one big supplier. You know, we should sell Molson Coors, AB, and Modelo, and expand the category of what we're selling away from our largest supplier. The next one was, let's get in the craft game. The next one was, let's get in the energy drink game. The next one, this is another next one of, let's get into Delta 9. Then there's food and some of the salty treats that are out there, and some of the stuff we're seeing people do outside of beverage alcohol. But in that route to market, that gas and convenience, where we do really, really well, and that direct to supermarket where it makes sense for those right brands. So this is all about owning your route to market. That's going to make your business more complex, but that's the name of the game, right? Like, those are the things that we need to do to actually grow the business, to get to the next level and manage it to the where we want it to be, you know. And there's an opportunity here where we work with our clients to simplify that chaos and make it easier to kind of manage in 100%. So the simple call to action is, like, at the end of the day, whether you want to sell this product or not, you got to be at the table. If you're not at the table, you're going to be on the menu. And I don't know how better way to put it other than that. And be the adult in the room when you get there. Like, you're going to be welcomed in to be at the table if you're a beer distributor and you hold one of these licenses, because the legislators want to hear from you. You're the only adult in the room anyways.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my 2 cents on it. Mikey, anything you want to add to my man on that?
That was it's a great topic. Like I said, whether you're for it or against it, it's a great topic. It's an eye opener, because we're at that pivotal point with this new segment coming to market that we really need to be ahead of it, get some regulations set around it, and kind of guide it like we did beer, and we are the experts. Beer distributors, I mean, we've been doing this for so long, so we are the experts. So it needs our help.
Help for sure. So, well, we fought through another little bit of technical difficulty chaos today, but we made it on the backside. It was actually pretty stable on the back half there. So we'll have to play around and see when we do our next one later in the day if it's any worse, and see what hell happens next.
Right.
So studio looks great, my man. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks for everybody listening. If you're enjoying this, please subscribe, share, and reach out to us with any comments you got too. So appreciate everybody out there in listener land, and cheers.
Cheers.